So here we are at my little table here. Hopefully this will work for us. I've got some colors laid out. I probably will not use them all, but I wanted to address the idea. Where did I put my palette knife? I wanted to address the idea that excuse me, that of course Bouguereau paints pretty white girls, very pale porcelain skinned creatures, and of course the world we live in is not necessarily filled with those skin colors. But anyways, for today that's what I'm painting, but I do want to address that of course we exist in a rainbow of wide-ranging colors. So what I have laid out here on the palette, I have some white here, and I use Williamsburg titanium white. So this is PW6. It's pure titanium. It's excruciatingly slow to dry. I have a painting here that I've done for a friend. It's still drying. I think it's been 2 weeks, but this room is also quite cold. So what I do as well is I mix it with a lead white. So this is lovely for portraiture. Lead, it gives you a more translucent white. It also accelerates the drying of the titanium. So that's what this pile is all about. You do want white. I know most of you, if you want to try this, work with titanium. The complaint with titanium is it's so opaque. It's creates kind of what they call, a lot of people, excuse me, refer to as chalky mixtures. And what you can do is use chalk or extender mediums, and that will help with maybe some of that heaviness. Any rate, so the whites, and I've got cadmium red medium. So we're going to be using this certainly with our Caucasian mixture, and crimson. So this is going to come in on the lips. And yellow ochre is kind of my go-to for Caucasian mixture. So basically we mix up a muted orange with yellow ochre and cadmium red. That's sort of the base mixture. And the yellow ochre I use is just Italian lemon ochre from Williamsburg, but it is really sludgy coming out of the tube. It's super heavy, so I have to add oil back in. However, the world is not all Caucasian. So in that spirit, whoops, I've got some white paint on my hands already. I've added raw sienna. So there may be some skin colors where raw sienna is actually a better choice. And you can see hopefully here the difference between raw sienna and yellow ochre. So this is darker and browner, for lack of a better term. This is burnt sienna. So literally this pigment is put in an oven and roasted, and this becomes a very earth orange. This next color is transparent red iron oxide, and it's a red, but a very earthy red, and in some cases your skin color might be almost transparent red iron oxide with white. And then we have burnt umber. So for many people of African descent, this might be like the color you start out with. This is their base skin color. This is where they live. It actually has a reddish orangish undertone, depending again on manufacturer. And that's the other thing, that these pigments will vary based on who makes them. And then here I have raw umber. Raw umber should maybe fall in here. It's actually a low chroma yellow. So I'm just going to move this camera over a bit, I think. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, okay. And it's a low chroma yellow, and it's a good neutralizer for many situations. Certainly anytime you're using greens. There's my little panel. And yeah, so those are those colors. Then the issue is we make skin color, no matter where you where you fall on the planet in terms of race, ethnicity, we're all orange. And I find this a lovely unifying principle and a great place to understand where to start. So the problem is that we're orange, but as you can see from certainly from my skin tone, no one is bright orange. So what we need to do when we're mixing skin tones is then take our orange mixture. So let's start off here and mix, let's say, what I call our mother color. And what we're going to start with, hopefully, that's my husband out in the garage there. Hopefully that's not too loud. So what you can see here is that the cad red is so much more powerful. So I maybe just move some of this over, and what I'll do is maybe add a bit more yellow here. So let's maybe make this a little yellower. And it's a guesstimate, right? We're making a best guess. And what we then want to do is lighten this. And maybe we'll add a bit more color here. And I suppose you could make a full string. So what we're going to be dealing with is the concept of value. So we're moving from dark to light. This is a Munsell value scale. And we basically want to have a range of this handy. I don't necessarily need the whole, 9. Basically, this falls into 9 values, and whether that's of a whole lot of use, you can decide. But something like this pre-mixed gives you it just gives you a place to start, and there's consistency. So the problem now, or the issue now, is how do we neutralize this? How do we, where do we go? Because this, probably in here somewhere, but that's still not maybe quite right. So the issue with skin color is then we need to neutralize it or gray it down usually. And the easiest way is with technical, so we can add complements, but this is very aggressive and very chromatic. So what I have over here is Viridian, which is a weaker tinting green, phthalo green, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, and what I'll do here is move my black down here. So I would argue that black is your darkest blue, your most neutral blue, and it is probably the easiest if you're a beginner to manage in terms of, graying, literally, mixing a gray to adjust your skin color. So again, I'm doing this quickly. I'm just going to guesstimate. So this and this kind of go together. And maybe we'll make that a bit darker. This was ivory black. I mixed a bit of German earth in there just to help with the drying time. Again, black is also a very slow drying pigment. Yeah, and yeah, so that might be a little bit dark for that, but okay. Okay, you can always add a little bit more white. And, you know, mix up enough paint so that you're not sort of mealy, you know, you're not sort of scrambling. Unfortunately, you know, mixing paint just, it kind of means that. And with your lighter colors, start with your white and then add, you know, a little bit of the darker color. So now we have a light, you know, a light gray that kind of goes with this. So now you have, let's say, like some uniformity and your color mixes, and away you go. Now, you can neutralize with green and blue, but phthalo, for example, is like the drunk aunt and uncle at the party. So like a little, like just a little goes so far, right? So you can see the smallest amount of this phthalo green gives us a green, a blue green. So when we look at the color wheel, the complement of orange is blue. So a blue green often gives you a more neutralizing effect. So if we take, you know, if we take this orange and we add a little bit of this, so we get a lightening, and you hopefully see that it also dulls the color down and makes it, you know, this might be a color that would show up in your portrait. Let's just play around a bit here. There's the transparent red iron oxide with a bit of white. You know, that might be, in your particular skin color or portrait world, that might be a color. Or, you know, we add a bit of the blue-green, and you can see, hopefully, the cooling, the neutralizing. You know, we add a bit of gray. This becomes perhaps someone with a very ruddy skin tone, or sunburned, or, you know, they've been outside, they're, you know, okay. And then let's say someone with more, you know, African-based skin tones. And we take some of this. You know, this might be, so you can see how this all becomes very interchangeable, right? So and if the light is cool, maybe it feels cool like that. Maybe, you know, maybe you need to warm it up a bit. And so we get a range of skin tones for someone who's African, etc. Perhaps if someone is, let's say, I don't know, more South Asian, or has a yellower, more olive skin tone, then the, you know, the raw sienna would make more sense. And we push it in this direction. Right? So it's all going to depend on the light source, the natural skin color of someone, all of that. And in other words, there's no such thing as flesh color. There's no such thing as a unified, you know, skin color theory. It's observation, and at least with, hopefully with this kind of idea, you get an idea of where to start. What I also wanted to show you is, so when we look at value or look at color, one of the systems we can use is Munsell, and this is the Munsell book, the Munsell scale, and this is, and how Munsell organizes color is, This is fairly simplified. I think there's more complicated versions, but they have a hue color wheel that we're familiar with. So when we look at yellow, red, or orange, when we go directly across, the complement is blue. So, you know, we've got red and green and purple and green, yellow. These are sort of theoretical ideas of color, but mixing, color mixing, we get a lot of anomalies. So that's why using the complements to neutralize our orange doesn't always necessarily work. And the simplest way to neutralize a color is using gray. I'm missing a few things here, so just ignore that. This would be white and the two dark grays. And so this is the primary. The first idea of color is hue, you know, red, blue, green, yellow, orange, that kind of thing. The next idea is value. So we kind of looked at that. This is the same expression of going from light to dark, white to black. So how light or dark something is. And then the third concept within Munsell is chroma. And some people refer to this as saturation. I think technically it's saturation is a separate idea, but I think chroma is an absence of gray. So as we move away from this central axis, we have less and less gray in our color, and it becomes pure as the axis goes all the way out to the end point. Each hue has its own characteristic in terms of where it sits on this wheel, but you get the idea. So that's the principle of color. And then when we look at skin color, we are in yellow, red. And hopefully you can see that almost all of us are on this page. So some of us might be up in here, right? And surprisingly, like I'm kind of up in here. And again, depending on, you know, whether it's illuminated or in shadow, this is what you're going to see. But other folks are going to be down here. And or there are some, I think, African skin tones that pretty well come into black. And I know there's many BIPOC artists who are using pure black to portray black skin. It's a political statement. I don't think that's my purview. But there are folks that, yeah, that get into this. And of course, when we're trying to, if someone has this sort of median color, then shadowing this, you're definitely using dark blues and blacks because we need to go darker in some shadows. So that's Munsell. All right. And then the other idea I wanted to show you, this is an app called Chroma Magic. And I've loaded the photo that we're going to be painting. And essentially what this does is it gives you the Munsell scale over here. So it's showing us that it's, showing us where we sit on this yellow-red Munsell scale, the closest Munsell color, and then if we want, that's the image color. So you can see, hopefully, that this image color is grayer. So it's probably in between these two colors here, and it's grayer than what I have. So we're just going to start mixing colors and getting them in and trying to get the right color in the right value in the right place. And I've got this drawn out on this little 4x4 panel. It's been prepared. It's aluminum, and it's been prepared with 4 coats of gesso. And I've pretty well made it smooth and just drawn out the excuse me, the simplified version of the image. So just gonna get going and get my reference set up here. she is fairly pink, which is always interesting. It's that I think what a lot of people like this image. I don't think Bougereau signed it, so that's why it's an unsigned. Excuse me. It's unsigned image, and I'm going to start off with I think the darker of the color, and it's actually surprisingly it's very much and so what it's telling me is that it's a value 4. So using this, right, if I put that color, that might be a little bit dark. I'm going to add a little bit of the skin color to lighten it up. And remember that in painting, the value is actually the most important thing. So that feels fairly close. And so, and again, you just make a start. And when you put color on a white panel, it's nerve-wracking and it feels quite anxiety producing because it feels dark, right? It feels like, whoa, that's and I'm going to move into lighter color now. Maybe just a little lighter in here. And we're moving into value 5 here. Yeah, so that's actually too dark. Don't know if you can see what I'm doing there. So, and what's nice about this laminated chart is you can put paint right on there and sort of, yeah, so that's disappearing into the 5. So this is telling me that it's yeah, and this whole area is kind of this shadowed, warm gray, and there's some areas here that are almost pure gray in the light. It gets very very cool and light. And I think what's hard for so many folks to feel comfortable with and/or understand is that even for Caucasian skin tones, just how dark some of these areas can be. And so the lips, often the bottom lip is defined not so much by like the shape itself, but it's defined by this shadow underneath. And to me it feels quite gray. there's a bit of lightening and cooling. So I've been kind of using that brush for the dark, so I'm going to set that aside. And whoops. Sorry, folks, did I? There, how's that? Okay. And the area in here is very light, so it's a 6. So let's see how we do with this color. It's actually a little bit darker. And it comes in here, there's that, so this is the, I think it's the philtrum that comes up here around the lip. So this is where embryonically we join together that area of symmetry in the human body, and the zygote sort of doubles over on itself, and there's kind of a joining. I don't know. Maybe it does feel a little light in here. And then there's just ever slight shadowing in here as it comes around the lip. So this part here is, so we dip down. So the other thing to keep in mind while we're doing all of this is the form. And this dips down, and this is the muzzle. So the lips are actually coming out towards us and then curving back. The upper lip is coming out towards us and curves back in where the two lips meet. And this lower lip curves out and back. And then there's usually some kind of a shelf or overhang, hence the shadow here. And this is what we're also trying, like, in a way, it's the constant awareness of the form while we're painting. Yeah. Yeah, so this, this is much, we'll add a little more color in here. And sometimes the whole exercise, just get some paint on there, cover it up, and then, or as Paul Foxton would say, just splodge some paint in there, and then we can make better decisions about our values and colors, right? And this is to me, this is feeling, you know, there's much lighter in here. And in here. This feels a little, to me, a little grayer, a little cooler in here. And to me, there's just a little bit more pinkness in here. So what you can choose to do in certain areas is maybe add, you know, just a little bit of crimson. I do this, I tend to do this a little bit by the seat of my pants, so maybe not, you know, not the best. And there is a bit of a shadow more here. And the shadow in here does feel a little bit darker under that lip. And you notice I'm not being super fussy at the moment with the edges. Everything here is very soft. And we can keep it kind of fluid. What you can do if you want at this stage certainly is you can get a fan brush. This is a sable fan, or just any soft brush, and again, just soften your edges. Sorry, I'm just rooting around for the brushes. But yeah, if you don't have a fan brush, this is a sable brush, but it's nice and soft, so you could use that as well. Specifically, if you want to get a little more targeted on your edges. So let's yeah, and this still, I don't know, this still says it's a value 6, but I just feel like this is still, should be a little bit lighter. And then there's this little, I don't know, bulbous area on the chin. And then maybe there's a bit of light here. So again, as these forms are coming into the light, they just feel a bit lighter. And of course, this isn't my usual painting position, so I'm probably not seeing things as well as I normally do. Yeah, so we're just going to transition that a little bit more here. And sometimes in areas where light transitions into shadow, we get a little more color. So maybe where, you know, some of that pinkness that I'm seeing, yeah, so we just want to make sure as well that we're just getting paint on the surface. You don't want to be, I think we don't want to be stingy with it, right? We want a rich paint surface. Yeah. like I say, I think yeah, I just feel like there's a bit of pinky whiteness there. Okay. Yeah, and this darkness might be a little bit more color in that as well. All right, up in here in this shadow area, just feel like it's a bit darker. There's a bit more of a shadow in here. There. Okay, so yeah, so we've kind of got a base idea of color. Now let's get some lip color in there. And again, let's start with the dark. And usually I like to start with a bit of like crimson. This is permanent crimson, and maybe some black. Some people like ultramarine blue. You could try that. Right, and here we have this sort of deep shadow where the lip joins, and I think I'll put some in here all along this. And again, the difficulty is this is all soft, so there's, you know, you have to sort of feel your way around in here. And as we move, as the lip curls up into, you know, this moves into more color and maybe a little redder. And these are so fun because it's so fun to paint with red. Like this beautiful, rich color that we rarely, you know, we often don't get to paint with. And then what I do like to do, because this is moving slightly lighter, but move the skin color in here. And it makes sense, right? That often skin color should be incorporated into the lips because, well, that's part of, it's really, the lips are just a more vascular area. Blood vessels are closer to the surface of, and hence, you know, we're seeing this lighter color. And of course it's enhanced either with cosmetics and or, you know, makeup, but so often what happens here, there's the point where the lip joins. The lip actually also comes out in the center, so we often get a bit of light area right in here. And then this goes into darkness here. Also get a bit of gray shadowing. Around this. So I'm making a grayer red. Again, it's coming from the bottom lip now. It's emerging, you know, from the shadow, the two lips. But so hopefully too, you're seeing that you can't make a whole lot of decisions about where things are going or what your colors are doing until you kind of get something on there. And, you know, does it have to be perfectly correct? Maybe, maybe not. I tend to be a bit of a bunger, so like just get it in there, and I'll sort it out. You know, I'll sort it out later, and that may or may not work for you. And I know there's some, you know, ateliers and schools that, you know, don't. But again, I don't want to be on here for hours. But yeah, I'm looking at my reference image, and you know, it kind of feels gray in here. And you just, you know, and what's, I think, interesting at this point is that, you know, this color almost disappears. You know, this disappears almost into the skin. So that's, you know, again, that's another observation that you need to, you know, you need to make. So the balls you're juggling is color and value, and then, you know, what are my shapes? What else is going on here that that I have to keep track of. And yeah, there's a lot. And maybe it was, and sometimes it's fun to add a little bit of the blue just to give you a little bit of chroma rather than just black in there, although it's quite dark, you know. And it kind of disappears in here. And again, we can restate that darkness in there. So maybe the colors here that maybe felt a little bit odd in the beginning are, I think, are starting to resolve themselves. And so all along here, this edge is soft. So this is maybe where I can bust this out, because then I get a little more control over how soft that edge is. And I think that's part of the charm of this painting, is that all of these forms kind of blur into each other, and that there's that extremely, like, just this soft velvety finish. And like this doesn't really belong in this image. It's painting this study. This is all very soft. And maybe I think perhaps that's the charm of this is that, you know, nothing is, it's all mysterious, and maybe, you know, that's what people enjoy. And I think too, again, just these wonderful notes of saturated color, right? It's just so juicy. You know, there's a little bit of red in there. Actually feels a little more alizarin-y. You know. Yeah, and then this feels a little more, I think, alizarin-y in there as well. And again, there's you know, there's room for you to interpret this. This is your world, your color. You know, you can explore this as you like, of course. So yeah, I don't want anything. And of course, you know, you kind of maybe fix one section and then you end up you know, having to sort of so it's a bit of a back and forth. It's a bit of a ping-pongy kind of thing. And there's a bit of a highlight. It's not, it's a very pale gray, I think. Not white. So okay, maybe. Now I feel like my values over here got a little light because I think the lip color feels good to me, but yeah, this does merge. Like there is a sort of disappearing, right? So again, this is, you know, you start out and you think, oh my God, this, you know, it's telling me it's dark. You know, that this is, but it feels, when you do it that dark in the beginning, it's sometimes really hard to have the confidence to trust that. It just feels like, oh my God, that, you know, it just cannot be that dark. But it is, right? And yeah. So sometimes you just sort of have to fiddle with it a bit, and of course, because I'm holding it, watch your edges. And what you could do is, again, you can always sort of finish at this stage, let things dry, or yeah, let things dry. You don't want to paint and reassess, right? You always have the option of reassessing. Yeah, just be careful what you pick up with your brush. I'm still thinking that I can add a bit of darkness in here. She feels, yeah. So again, the lip overall the lip goes from corner out to corner. Then within the lip, there's this, and again, it varies from person to person, but some, there is this sort of kind of out, in, out, and then this dips back down and curves out. So it's dealing with all these micro forms and micro transitions, and that's, that's part of the challenge, I think. Make that a little redder. Yeah. Like I say, this red is just so yummy, and it's just like so fun to paint. Just because you almost get that synesthesia type of response where you can almost just sort of taste that cherryness, whatever you want to call it. Right. And then let's, I think this still maybe comes in a bit. So just that shape. And, as Sargent said, a portrait is a painting of someone with something a bit wrong with the mouth, right? It's just, might have to pull that in a bit. And it's just a little bit ambiguous what that form is there. And again, we can just pull that in a bit, correct that. And, yeah, I think this comes up a bit. And, yeah, I think this comes in a bit. And again, I'm going to restate this shadow. And it might be just a little bit darker. So I'll get a little bit of black here. And maybe in here too. Right. Just a little bit of a note in there and a little bit of a note in there. Kind of curves up. And again, you can make the decision that this is inspiration. We're not literally, you're not maybe trying to exactly copy. I mean, I'm under no illusions. I do these little paintings up. They're copies. They're not original. Whoops. Yeah, so I think I'm pretty close to being done. And And often too, what you get on the lower lip is a bit of pillowing. So I'm going to put a little bit of light in here, but again, that there's this, sometimes some people have more of an indentation here and the sense of pillowing, but it tends to be, I think, more this direction. And of course, with fillers and Botox and what we're all, so many people are trying to do with, that's what we're trying to restore. So as we get older, we lose all those lovely fat. For whatever reason, we get fat everywhere else, but we lose fat in our face. So it becomes extremely frustrating for those of us of a certain age. We're just, you know, we just lose all that plumpness and fullness and things that, yeah, and then you have to pay surgeons the big bucks to restore. Anyway, so I'm just looking at color notes and just trying to and I'm wiping my brush off in between, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll revisit this tomorrow and check. Let me see if I can get that so you can see it. So Bougereau's Lips. Yeah, so just remember, the form curves out and back. This comes out and in. This comes out and in. So again, and then often this kind of comes out and this comes up and out, and hence we get, you may get a highlight somewhere here in the center, and of course a highlight here. And it's just about trying to observe these things, right? It's so all these forms are taking place as part of the facial landscape. Okay, so thanks for joining me today, and I hope at least maybe you got an idea of how to start with some skin colors. And yeah, I hope to do, well, I won't make any promises, but we'll try to be more regular. Take care, everyone. Happy New Year. Wishing everyone all the best.